What's going on, college football fans? Welcome back to the First and Long College Football Show. I'm your co-host, as always, Marcus, joined by my co-host, Mason, and we've got our early preview segment coming at you. But first, we're going to update our top 25 headed into Week 9 of the college football season. Thank you so much for watching the First and Long College Football Show. It was an outstanding weekend in Week 8. We reacted to it last night. We're going to kind of give some mini reactions to some of that stuff today. But if you missed that show last night, we had a really good time. I was pretty fired up last night. We call it the overreaction show for a reason, because Saturday night is just time for us to let loose and overreact. And we had a really good time with you guys live last night. So again, I encourage you to go check that out. A lot of fun. We've got shows coming at you Sunday. Obviously, today is Sunday, so Sunday evenings we've got early previews, top 25. Tuesdays, we've got our big game matchups, our previews and predictions for those. And this Tuesday, we're going to be updating our college football playoff bracket. So come join us for that. That'll be interesting. We're getting to that time of year, guys. And then on Thursdays, we have our weekly betting show. We give you our best bets in college football. That's called Between the Lines. Have a real good time with that show, real short show on Thursday. And then we've got our reaction show every Saturday night. So this is your formal invitation to come join us here on the First and Long College Football Show. And we hope that you'll consider hitting that subscribe button because we're having a lot of fun this season. And you're not going to get unfiltered college football news anywhere like you're going to get it right here on the First and Long College Football Network. Mason, how you doing?
Doing good, man. It was a work day for me. I had drill this weekend, so it was a very busy weekend for me. I hadn't had a chance to go back and go through all my rewatches yet. Kind of got home today and went out, did some grocery shopping with the wife and the kid, and now I'm here ready to talk some more football and really break down what I think is probably going to be, I would say, maybe a little bit of a letdown sort of week from a college football scheduling standpoint, but we all know how that goes. You think you got a light week, and then all of a sudden somebody gets upset big, and hopefully we can rightfully predict who that's going to be, but we'll have to wait and see. Nonetheless, we're getting to the nitty gritty, like in college football right now. Mm-hmm. So we've got some big matchups, particularly. I said it on the live show last night or this morning, whatever you want to call it, in the wee hours of the morning. LSU and Texas A&M, I think that game will decide who goes to the playoff, and potentially even the SEC championship. I feel like that is a very pivotal game, so that's a big one this week. We got Missouri at Alabama. I think that's going to be a pretty competitive game. We'll have to wait and see. Alabama is favored by almost 2 touchdowns. And then a couple of, not so competitive Big Ten games, but that seems to be what the Big Ten is right now. You've got some big dogs up top, and then there's a huge drop off in the Big Ten, unlike that of which we have seen really in the past few years, I think. And I'm talking about Nebraska at Ohio State. That looked like it would be a bigger matchup than it probably is right now after Nebraska got absolutely shellacked last week or just last night against Indiana. And then also Illinois at Oregon, two big name brands. I think Illinois looks like a really tough program. I'm wondering if they're going to be able to keep that close, but that one's also a 21.5 point spread, obviously favoring Oregon. But I'm still excited to talk about it because I think that there are some keys to victory for Illinois in that game. And I'm ready to go through it with you and see if we can dig those keys out here tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I forgot to mention, guys, on Tuesday's show, from now on, we're going to do something that's called Scramble Drill. And so if your team is not involved in one of these big matchups, and this is kind of the whole reason we wanted to start the segment, if your team isn't involved in one of those big matchups, Scramble Drill is where we go through all of the other matchups that mean anything. That towards a conference race, it doesn't necessarily have to be a ranked matchup, but we want to be able to talk about all these games. And if there's a game that you want to talk about or whatever, that's why you come watch the live show. You throw that comment in the comment section in between these segments here that we do. We'll answer the questions. We'll have you guys on the show, whatever fits your fancy. This is your show, right? This is the college football show for the people. by the people. Let's jump into it, man. Let's get into this top 25. Um, Good bit of changing going on here coming out of week 8. I mean, you got Alabama taking a couple of losses, and that's kind of where we'll start off. And I'm not going to go every single team here in the top 25 because we've got it on your screen, but we'll talk about some of the movers and shakers and what they've got coming up here. But we've got 20 at 25. We've got Alabama, and that's way lower than everybody else in the country is going to have Alabama this week or already has. If you've looked at some rankings that have came out, I guess the AP has came out already today. I don't look at the AP. It's a bunch of, I'm sorry, those guys don't even watch the football that we watch. Like, and I say we, like you guys that tune in this channel, those reporters don't watch all the games that we watch every weekend. We know what these teams, how they're doing, and what's going on. And I just, those guys throw their vote in, and I just don't think they really give a damn about it. You guys, let me know in the comment section where I'm wrong here or where we're wrong on this top 25. I mean, it's not concrete, obviously. There, I could see arguments, moving some teams around, obviously. So we'd love to hear from you guys on it. But anyway, at 24, we threw Colorado in there, and I just want to say Mizzou was on the cusp of making this top 25. I mean, Mizzou's only got one loss. The problem is they don't really have a win that you can point at and say that's why they need to be in the top 25. I mean, Alabama has beat Georgia, and we can all say whatever we want to say about that, but Georgia's one of the best teams in the country, and so Alabama therefore has one of the best wins in the country. The problem is they've got losses that are not good, and they've obviously been sputtering. I keep getting sucked back to Alabama. Colorado. Don't look now, but Colorado is really just kind of a snake in the grass there in the Big 12. I mean, they really are. I It's possible, man. It really is possible. This Big 12 just looks pretty bad to me this season. I mean, it looks just teams not meeting expectations at the top rung. I mean, I don't know any other way to put it. Just absolute. Utah has been just. I don't understand what's gone on with Utah this season. I really don't. You move from the Pac-12, which was so tough last year. You go to the Big 12, and it looks like Utah doesn't know what a football looks like. I don't know. Cam Rising's out, probably gone. I don't know. Maybe he comes back next year. Who cares? It's an interesting situation out there, and something that we'll probably discuss more this week. Vandy at 23, Navy, Army rounds out your 25 through 21 there. Illinois, we've got at 20. Illinois' got one loss to Penn State, guys, and as we're going to see as we flip to the next page, Penn State, we obviously at this point in the season, they're undefeated, and they play in the Big Ten. Has Penn State really played like a really, really tough team? I don't know that they have. They played USC. That thing came down to the wire. They beat Illinois 21-7. We're going to see Penn State's got some tougher games, I guess, coming up. They're going to play Ohio State, which will probably be a pretty tough one there, but we'll see what they're made of. Penn State certainly looks like a playoff team to me. We'll talk about them in a minute. Syracuse, they're at 19. They've got a couple of big games coming up. Not much movement there. SMU, we kind of keep the same. Pitt, undefeated. We kind of kept them in the same areas where we had them. Boise at 16. Boise continues to hang in there and has one of the best losses of anybody, right, to the number one team in the country. By the way, Texas was number one in the AP last week. Why? I don't understand. I said that last week. I'll say it again this week. They shouldn't have been number one. What win did Texas have that was better than Oregon's over Ohio State? Didn't make any sense. Made absolutely no sense. But anyway, Texas A&M at 15. Big game this week, man. We're going to talk about it. They're facing off against number 11 here in our ranking against LSU. It'll be a really, really big test for Texas A&M. We're obviously going to talk about that one in a minute, but Texas A&M, after their loss to Notre Dame, where they have looked really good for the most part, they haven't really played anybody. Missouri, and look, Texas A&M absolutely stomped Missouri's ass. And since that game, I've still been trying to figure out, was that more Missouri's downfall? Was that more Texas A&M playing up to expectations? we saw Missouri struggle again last week. We saw Texas A&M kind of struggle with Mississippi State, couldn't put them away. I was told all week last week how trash Mississippi State is because they 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 scored a bunch of points on Georgia, so everybody wanted to tell me how bad Georgia was going into the Texas game because of the Mississippi State game, and that whole transitive property in college football. You're barking up the wrong tree if that's how you're looking at every situation. Um, Kansas State at 14 looked really good this weekend. Notre Dame 13. They did exactly what they were supposed to do to a wounded duck that was Georgia Tech. BYU at 12. They escaped narrowly this weekend. Somebody's going to get BYU at some point. Um, that was an absolutely amazing football game. Retzlaff has been really impressive, been really clutch. I would say more clutch than impressive, I guess. But BYU is a pretty well-rounded football team, so I think that's why they're able to keep winning these ball games. I don't think they have one area of their game that's just really, really bad. And then LSU at number 11. LSU is blooming. They're a flower that's blooming right now. They're the perfect example of a tale of two seasons. The beginning of the season, LSU did not look very good, guys. It just wasn't looking very good. There was a lot to figure out after Jaden Daniels moves on to the NFL. We see what he's done in the NFL so far, and it makes a lot of sense why he was able to put that offense on his back last year. I think it took a few games to figure out who's going to be, can Nuss step up and be a vocal leader? Is he good enough to be able to lead this offense in the right direction? Don't look now. LSU's developing a bit of a run game, at least good enough to be complimentary. And their defense is in position to make plays, whereas they weren't in the last few years. And they're also creating a little bit of havoc behind the line of scrimmage. And that's really changed things for this defense over the last few weeks. Blake Baker is doing a really, really good job there. That was an outstanding hire, and looks like LSU is trending upward right now. I think there's still some flaws in the system, but I thought the most impressive thing this past weekend was LSU's ability to stop the run game by Arkansas, and it's been a big problem for LSU. I don't think they're the most talented team in the world on that defensive line, and especially interior of the defensive line. And they were able to really get a handle on the rush game this weekend, and it's probably the one thing you can point to and say that's probably why they controlled this football game the way that they did. But very impressive win there for LSU, no doubt about it, on the road. What do you think about 25 through 11? Um, Again, I've said it a few weeks in a row now. If you'd have showed me this in the offseason, I would have been like, what? What happened? But this is where we are. And there's some really good teams on this list that aren't in our traditional top 25s that we would have imagined in the offseason. What do you think?
Yeah, and I almost wonder how much the new 12 team format of playoffs is changing the way we look at the top 25, because we're opening up the field now to all these teams who are in our top 25 who could still potentially make the college football playoff at this point, whereas in the past you kind of like some of these games might have just been swept under the rug and not really notice as much, because now all you got to do is win your conference. So if you're still in your conference race, you're still in it for the playoffs. So at that point, what's the trickle down effect of that when it comes to a top 25? I really like the top 25, Mark. I agree with most of this. For those who don't know, Mark usually sends me his top 25. I create the graphic. I might tweak a few things here and there, but with me working this weekend, I didn't catch as many games as Mark, so I pretty much just left it with what he had on in his top 25 list. But I agree with it mostly. I mean, Alabama at 25. I mean, wow. Have they fallen? They are hanging on by a thread in the top 25 right now. Just barely hanging on because of a Georgia win. But I do think that Alabama is out of the playoff race at this point. They certainly could win out and make it, but with the struggles that they've had over the past 3 weeks, I just don't see it happening. Especially as good as LSU is playing right now. Further on down the road, Alabama will have to go to Baton Rouge for that game. Colorado seems to be surprising everyone. We had all written them off at some point this season, at one point or another this season, or maybe before the season even started. But here they are, still contending in the Big 12 and making a run for it here, over halfway through the season. And really impressed with them and that staff. I don't think that there's some national championship contending team. I think that there is a path for them to win the Big 12 if everything falls just right, but nonetheless, they're still in the hunt, so they still kind of make it here. Vandy, we're going to see them get tested. I saw something right before we were on. Actually, an Auburn fan sent me a text, and it was a screenshot. And some of you guys may have seen this tweet that went out, but they said that Texas got caught in a trap game because they were looking ahead to Vandy over Georgia. and I just thought that was hilarious because Vanderbilt seems like a little bit of a sleeping giant or something over there. And that just makes a ton of sense. So watch out, Texas.
What world are we living in? What the heck?
That's right. But, we saw what happened when Alabama played Georgia and then had to play Vanderbilt at Vanderbilt. So Texas better watch out. Especially I would definitely say that if they beat Georgia and then have to go play at Vandy, I don't think anybody's going to catch Vandy sleeping this year. They're a pretty tough team. So I think that Texas will give them their best shot. But Vandy, the top 25 was fun while it lasted. Can you give us some magic one more week and pull off another upset? Speaking of big upsets, if Navy can get it done against Notre Dame, my gosh, what an upset that would be. They're a really good program. I think that Notre Dame in this game is going to be favored by 11.5, if I'm not mistaken. So Vegas seems to think this is going to be a pretty close game in comparison to years past. Maybe Navy can stay in this one. I think that they've got the roster to do it. Army, much the same, but and similarly, we're probably not going to see Army tested until they face Notre Dame. Can one of those two Service Academy teams take down Notre Dame? I think the potential is there, but that's a really good defense that you're going to have to run that triple option on in order to get that done. We'll have to wait and see. Not going to go through all of these here. I think, just picking, kind of cherry picking here. I thought SMU had another really impressive outing this week. Once again, they're looking like a dark, not a dark horse, but a dark Mustang now in the ACC. I feel like SMU really has a chance to upset more teams along the way in just their first season in the Power Four in a long time, and really in a ACC race that's wide open. I think that those Mustangs are looking pretty good right now. Boise State had the bye. They're still my pick to sneak into the or get into, not really sneak in, but get into the playoffs and get that at-large bid there. I really, there's just not much to say other than Ashton Genty and a pretty tough defense. I really like that combination there. They play complementary football as good as any team in the country, I think. Texas A&M and LSU. It's a matchup we're going to talk about here soon, but this is going to decide a lot of things this week. That this game is going to be massive as far as implications go. Looks like it's going to be a night game at Kyle Field. Can't wait to break it down with you here in just a few minutes, Mark. But both of these teams are very much deserving to be here. I said last night, but LSU looks like Ohio State circa 2022 when they finally got a defensive coordinator that kind of knew what he was doing and, really just elevated the defense to match an offense that has been very proficient for the past few seasons. That defense is looking for real now. I'm anxious to see what they do moving forward. I'm with you. I think BYU is going to get got at some point. I wouldn't be surprised if Kansas State also drops another one in the Big 12, considering the parity that's in that conference and some opponents that are kind of stepping up and putting themselves in a national spotlight like Iowa State. I think that Iowa State's got Kansas State and Utah at the end of the season, if I'm not mistaken. So really an opportunity for them to supplant themselves as the front runner in the Big 12 a little bit later on.
Absolutely. All right, let's go 10 through 6 right quick. We've got Texas at number 10, right below Indiana, at number 9. Look, Texas, we talked about it all week last week, and then I heard some people talk about it a little bit Saturday, kind of in the pregame shows and things like that. But Texas had not played anybody this year, guys, and we talked about it on this channel, and it was a big risk, taking Texas and those points. I talked about Vegas was setting a trap last week, and look, I went and listened to Steve Sarkisian's post-game press conference. He gave absolutely no credit to Georgia. I mean, very, very little, very little. He said a couple of times that that's a pretty good team we played over there, but it was all, according to Sark, it was all self-imposed issues. It was all Texas's fault that they lost that game. And look, I mean, maybe there's some truth to that. I mean, they did turn the ball over a bunch, but look, Texas has got to prove themselves. Okay, they were the little spoiled brat of the Big 12. They always got everybody's, everybody thought they were the kings of the castle, a king of the castle. Not anymore. You're in a much larger castle, and there's already kings here. So you're going to have to slay a king before you can be one. And Texas hasn't proved that. I mean, they haven't won anything since 2009. They won a Big 12 championship last year over Oklahoma State. So, I mean, we say what we want to say, and we can talk about the projection and what we thought Texas would be, blah, blah, blah. They haven't showed it. They ran the ball for 20-something yards last week. It was something we talked about in the preseason. We said, well, maybe they've fixed it. They haven't fixed it. And you're not going to win playoff games running the ball for 20-something yards. So, I don't know. It was an interesting situation yesterday. And just a complete 180 for the Texas fan base after that football game. I knew talked to some people this morning that were at the game in Austin last night, and they said there was just people just absolutely crying at that game yesterday. Pretty hilarious stuff. Anyway, number 9, Indiana. This team's really impressive. If you didn't know about Indiana, you know about them now. They absolutely just donkey punched Nebraska. I mean, I look, we talked about it on the show. We had kind of like a catchy title on our prediction from last week, and it caught a lot of attention, some of it negative from the Nebraska fan base, but we couldn't have looked any more genius than after that game, because Indiana was not just better in one phase of the game. They whooped their ass in 3 phases of the game, and now Nebraska has got to go to Ohio State. We're going to, we'll talk about Ohio State in a second, but that spread is large, and Nebraska's at 5 wins. We talked about it last night. What does this mean? They get stuck at 5. They might be waiting a little bit for that 6th win. 8, Tennessee. Maybe this past weekend and that second half for Tennessee was something that kind of helped them turn the corner. Sometimes when you go through really rough situations and you come out the other end with a W, you've got something to coach, but at the same time, you got the W and you kind of, I guess, kind of put restless fans at bay a little bit. The Tennessee offense figured out how to get it done in the second half. The Tennessee defense is what we thought they were. I think the secondary is maybe a little better than what I thought they were. I'm a true believer in this Tennessee defense, and they're going to be in every single football game. And it's going to come down to Nico hitting 2 or 3 plays a game and stretching the defense out. I mean, that's really the secret sauce for Tennessee at this point. I think they've got all the other pieces. I don't think Tennessee – I love the run game for Tennessee. Let me say that. Dylan Sampson is the man. I really like Dylan Sampson. God forbid something happened to that guy. I mean, because there's really nobody behind him, it doesn't seem like. I'm just being honest. I mean, I know there's guys, but nobody like Dylan Sampson. Got to keep him healthy. He is the catalyst of that offense right now. And like I said, Nico's got to hit a couple plays a game, stretch a defense out, and I think it'll go a long way in helping Tennessee. And with the offensive coach like Heupel, you would think that as the season goes on, he's going to be able to make adjustments and the offense is going to get slightly better. And like I said, I think in the second half of that game, I think they did play a lot better. which wasn't hard because of the first half of that game. Tennessee played like complete butt. But the defense was able to keep them in it. Like I said, Clemson, number 7. Clemson continues to look better every single week. The offense looks a lot better. Finally, Garrett Riley's, I think his vision and his system is finally starting to take effect. And it took a while, and it took some patience. And, much to the chagrin of college football nation, I think a lot of fans, everybody's super impatient, right? Everybody wants it here, wants it now. It's taken just a minute for Clemson to figure that out offensively. And I think they are figuring it out. Now, have they played a murderer's row of opponents? No. The only concern I see with Clemson at this point is I don't think they're very deep defensively. Every time we see this second or third string come in, it's like they give up 30 points every time. So that's something to kind of keep an eye on with Clemson. And they're going to play some of their biggest games towards the end of the year. So we'll definitely keep an eye on Clemson as they were able to defeat Virginia this past week. Iowa State squeaks by UCF. Apparently some kind of miracle plays there in that game. Still, this is one I got to go back and watch. It didn't have my direct attention. It was UCF and Iowa State. I'm sorry. There was other stuff on. I'm not dedicating a TV to that game. I'll have to go back and watch it. And Iowa State, it's just kind of sit and wait. Let's wait till the end of the season when they actually play somebody and really see what they're made of. UCF is pretty sorry, man. And to be struggling with them, I mean, it's not really a good sign necessarily. What do you think about 6 through 10?
Well, starting off where you left off with Iowa State, my understanding in that game was that it took a lot for them to win at the end. There were some miracle plays. Double O'Neill in the chat saying that, they were saved by the ref the last series of the game. I totally get all that, but based on some of the highlights that I saw early in the game, there were a lot of plays that UCF made on defense, some turnovers and things like that. It looked like a really messy game by the Iowa State offense, and I think if they clean that up, they get back to their sort of dominant ways there in the Big 12. I still feel pretty good about them winning the Big 12 at this point. Clemson, speaking of conference races, I would be really surprised if we don't see a Clemson and Miami ACC championship game at this point. They really seem like the two teams that are just a little, I don't want to say head and shoulders above the rest because they could definitely drop a game. We especially Miami, which we'll get to in just a minute. But I did want to ask you, Mark, do you think with Clemson's offense, the way that they're clicking right now, as a play caller, would you rather have Lincoln Riley or Garrett Riley? I think we forget that they're brothers. Like that doesn't get talked about a lot, until Clemson plays in a playoff game or something like that. But I feel like Garrett Riley's calling a better system right now, and probably with less weapons, especially on the perimeters. So
yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about it. I mean, like I said, Garrett he's been underwhelming to this point, and now this year it looks like things are coming to fruition. It's hard to say right now. The ACC is so down. They're so bad. I mean, that conference is just god awful, So it's hard. It seems like it's hard to gauge what Clemson would be able to do out of the conference, And I know we're talking about coordinators here, but I do agree that Riley is obviously making the Garrett Riley is making a lot of changes there at Clemson, and they're for the good. That would be pretty cool to see them match up in a playoff game, brothers against brother. But as we know, USC is not sniffing a playoff this season. But
won't see that this year. I while you were talking about Garrett Riley, it just had me thinking there for a minute. But moving on, Tennessee at 8. Huge win over Alabama. No matter what year it is, that's a big win to win the third Saturday in October. Shame on the Tennessee fans for storming the field. I said it last night, but come on, guys. You're number 11. You just beat the number 7 team. Like, it's not that big of an upset. Don't storm the field. Save your goalpost. Like we don't. They're an endangered species. We can't be just tearing down goalposts.
Did they tear them down?
Oh yeah, they tore it down. This one got got confiscated, I guess, by security. It didn't make it out of the stadium, but somebody had some wits about
y'all
them.
get ready. Tennessee will be putting up a GoFundMe account this week.
I know, right?
I mean,
Yeah,
I'm dead serious. That's how they do. I mean, and that shit's ridiculous, but that's how they do, man.
Yep. But at least somebody had some wits about them in that stadium to say, like, "Hey guys, we shouldn't be doing this. Like, come on, like, get it together. We can't be doing this every other year."
Did you see the comment from the on that last night? Somebody commented on the live show after we had already got off from being live, and they said that the recruits and parents were the first ones over the wall. I don't know. I didn't watch it, but I didn't watch the end of the game. I didn't watch all that stuff. I mean, it wasn't worth.
Probably a bit of an exaggeration. I have a hard time believing that they would beat the student section, but they probably joined in. I mean, who wouldn't at that point? Hell, as a Georgia fan, I would have been on the field grabbing some grass. As soon as somebody breaks the seal there. I mean,
dude, it's not going to be long now, and they're going to have these football stadiums set up like hockey, where there's like plexiglass around the edges of the top of the stadium, or excuse me, of the top of the the bowl there, and they're going to make it to where you can't climb over that thing because I mean, eventually somebody's going to die when this happens. I mean, I hate to be morbid or whatever, but and get off track, but eventually somebody's going to get trampled to death out there. I mean, we saw Alabama's wide receiver punch a girl a couple years ago, and I'm surprised there wasn't more made of it, then. But not a good idea, and I'm glad we never have to worry about that as Georgia fans. Georgia Bulldogs fans will never storm the field. It will never happen. No. It just will never happen.
They have a like a bush moat going around the field. Like it'd be tough to get through those bushes.
Got to get through the hedges. Yep.
Got to get through the hedges, man. All right, Indiana absolutely bludgeoned Nebraska. We'll pick back up with them against Ohio State, I guess. I mean, outside of Ohio State, like I took a look at their schedule. I don't see them losing another game outside of Ohio State. Which says a lot about Indiana. I don't mean to downplay them because they have a terrible schedule, but with the way that they're playing and I mean, apparently it doesn't matter who's playing quarterback either. This system is just set up for success. I am interested to hear what Curtis Rourke's status is moving forward after that hand injury. I surely hope he's fine, at least by the Ohio State game, because I do feel like they are going to need him down the road for sure. But Indiana is a very, very good team. And then Texas obviously loses to Georgia and, gets bumped down a pretty good bit. I feel like obviously Texas is much better than really any team on this list. I think that they could easily be 6 or 5 or 4 from a power rating standpoint, but this is a ranking, y'all. Like, who has Texas beat? That's the big question. Like, I know that they lost to Georgia, so did Clemson, but Clemson has looked much better in their ACC scheduling and all that. So I feel like a lot of these are transferable, places here, and for a lot of the top 25 they are. But at this point, I feel like we just need to see Texas continue to stack wins. I think a win over Vanderbilt is actually a pretty decent notch on the belt at this point with the way Vanderbilt's playing. Yeah, I would agree, especially depending on how you do it. They got to go to Vanderbilt, which Nick Saban will tell you is the easiest place to play in the SEC. But I still think that would be a pretty good win for them. But yeah, that's all I got on 6 through 10.
It's going to be interesting to see how Texas responds to an emotional loss. I'm really interested to see how that team responds after that, especially after their coach really wasn't really accepting the loss, which didn't really make a lot of sense to me. I mean, it couldn't have been more clear who was the better team this past Saturday. I mean, it couldn't have been more clear. I don't know. Texas hasn't beat anybody. So, number 5, speaking of teams that haven't beat anybody, Ohio State. Ohio State's going to get a chance to play Indiana. They're going to get a chance to play Penn State. And those are 2 really quality opponents. They haven't Ohio State played one quality opponent and they lost. It was a really close game. That's a really good loss. And that's why Ohio State's where they're at. I mean, we're looking for good wins and good losses here and comparing them to one another. That's all we can do. I try to leave preconceived notions out of this. I think Ohio State's a pretty doggone good team. But we're still going to have to wait a little longer to see how good they really are. Miami at number 4. Miami likes to play with fire. And eventually, when you play with fire, you will get burned. And I don't know when it's going to come. It might be against Clemson. Clemson and Miami, that might be a 52-49 football game. I think that's going to be a really, really high scoring one there. I can't wait to see it if we can get to that point in Charlotte. But Miami defensively is just not as good as what we thought they were going to be. I think offensively they are as advertised, although I will say the running game hasn't been as good as what I thought it was, at least with Damian Martinez as far as him. Mark Fletcher seems to kind of be more of the guy in that offense for whatever reason. But I think Miami's got potential to beat anyone, but defensively, I wonder if they've got a defense good enough to win a championship. Penn State is the complete opposite. Penn State is using every resource at hand to figure out a way to generate offense week in and week out. And kudos, because they've been successful doing that. And I would say in some cases more successful than last season. But we can also ask from Penn State, what's their most quality win? What's their highest quality win at this point? You'd have to say Illinois, you know. And Illinois's got some pretty serious flaws, on their team. We're going to talk about Illinois here in a minute. Georgia at number 2. I had to really kind of think about putting them over Miami and Penn State. But look, guys, I got eyeballs. I mean, and Georgia's loss, to Alabama. It was on the road at Alabama, and that was at a time when I felt like Alabama was playing a little bit better football, especially in the first half of that game. Georgia broke Alabama. Something got broken in that football game because from the second half of that football game, Alabama has been playing a pretty bad brand of football since then. From what we saw in the first half of the Georgia game versus what we saw since the last, I guess you could say, 14 quarters of football for Alabama, it's been totally different. I still think that's a quality loss for Georgia on the road at Bama. And Georgia's got one of the best wins of the year, and has been in some pretty good football games this season. I mean, there's not a more battle-tested team in the top 5. You could maybe argue Oregon, kind of, but I don't think you can truly argue that. I mean, Oregon's definitely played an easier schedule than Georgia this season. So, with Georgia having a loss, I realize that maybe this is a little controversial, having them all the way up at number 2, but I have eyeballs. I've seen what I've seen. If Georgia's defense can replicate what they did, I don't think there's anybody in the country that can beat them, Mason. I'm just going to be honest with you. Especially if the offense can figure out a way to just not turn the freaking ball over. The Georgia offense, I would have never thought it would have been the drag for this team, but right now they're kind of soul searching. It was the best game we've seen the Georgia offensive line play all year, though. I still 100% believe that. That was the best game we've seen the Georgia offensive line play all season. We saw some semblance of Georgia being able to run the football early in that game. We haven't seen that all season. So, whereas the weakness for Georgia right now is offense and kind of trying to work through some things, I think Georgia's kind of turning a page there too. It seemed like we turned the page on the defense maybe this past weekend, getting some guys back healthy. And I think the offense is starting to figure some things out. Offensive line was a big issue to start the season. It looks a lot better right now than what it did earlier. Let's see if Georgia can work out some of the communication issues with these between these wide receivers and Carson Beck, and figure out a way to simplify their relationship, because you do kind of see that on the field right now. Oregon, number 1. Oregon should have been number 1 last week. Oregon, I've yet to hear an answer from anybody that makes any sense about why Texas was number 1 over Oregon. It didn't make any sense, guys. There's no good reason for that. Texas had played no one. Oregon has played a much tougher schedule and is undefeated. It doesn't make any sense why Texas would have been over Oregon. I haven't heard one good answer for that. We're going to talk some Oregon football. They're going against Illinois this weekend. What do you think about the top 5, Mason?
Yeah, I think you got it right. Looking at Oregon, you could argue that the Ohio State win was better than Georgia's win over Texas, but remember that game was played at home for Oregon. They had the benefit of playing in front of their home field and in front of their home fans. So I would say that Georgia's win over Texas was a bigger win overall. But I could definitely hear the argument. So I agree. Even though Georgia has one loss, I feel like their win is just really propels them above the other undefeated teams. And then you look at the one loss that they had, and it was extremely close. And Georgia really should have won that game, I guess, at the end when it comes down to it. Penn State undefeated still. We'll see. I mean, this is another team that we're just kind of waiting until they face Ohio State to see what they're really made of. And credit Ohio State because, I mean, now all of a sudden it seems like they've got a decent schedule where they at least have 3 games that are losable. And I'm including Oregon in that, which they did lose, but Penn State and Indiana are the other 2. And yeah, and we'll have to wait and see on those 2 teams. The Big Ten is just kind of very top heavy this season, and it's a bit of a shame. I'm not hearing I don't want to hear the Big Ten's better than the SEC this year or anything like that. SEC is just more balanced overall. Any given week is kind of the mantra this year for the SEC, and when you're beating up on in conference teams or you're getting beat by a team within your conference, that means that the conference is good. It doesn't mean it's bad. So I don't understand this whole talk about the SEC is down. I understand there are no truly elite teams, but that can be said across the board. Like Oregon's not truly elite. We've seen them struggle in games that they shouldn't be struggling in. Ohio State got beat by that Oregon team. So, miss me with the whole SEC is down, Big Ten is up bit, because that's just not the case. I mean, we saw last year, Big Ten won the national championship. They could very well do it again this year, but that does not mean that they're a better conference than the SEC. And I'm not traditionally a SEC homer or anything like that. I'm just calling it like I see it. I mean, this is a really competitive conference with NFL talent on every single team in the SEC this year, and that's why they're a competitive conference. Miami, speaking of not competitive conferences, Miami looks like they are headed to the ACC championship game, but they're going to win every game from here on out by 1 score only. They are the most entertaining team to watch in football, but they don't win by much. They're not the best team to watch. They're not the best team in general. But if you want to watch good football and good competitive games, go watch the Miami game because they're very fun to watch. I don't know if anybody can stop that, that offense for Miami, that Hurricane offense. And I don't know if anybody can stop Cam Ward. I think he's playing like one of, if not the best, quarterback in the country right now. I mean, he looks absolutely electric, absolutely lights out. And he's very fun to watch. And I kind of already talked about Ohio State. I don't think I need to spend any more time on them. They've got their test coming up, but for now, I think they're a top 5 team and potentially even one of the top 3 teams as far as a power ranking goes. But for now, in this power ranking, I like them. I like them at 5 for now.
There is our top 25, guys. Appreciate y'all tuning in for that. Let's get into some of these early previews. I just one thing too. I had to. We got to talk about the comments for a second. Troy R. I won't say your whole name on here. I don't want to dox anybody. What do you say? 2 monkeys don't know nothing about football. I guess we're the monkeys. And I told Troy, I said that's racist. First of all. Because I'm black. So
yeah,
if you want to put your name on that, don't do that to my community, Troy. And I told him, I said, that's racist. I said, get the hell out of here. I said, and then what I meant to say is thanks for watching. And really, guys, anytime that I'm mean in the comment section, really what I meant to say was thanks for watching. I appreciate you coming out. And thank you, Troy. I certainly.
It's tough love here on the First and Long College Football Show.
It's YouTube.
But
look, YouTube. Yeah. I've been thinking about this lately. YouTube comments are essentially equal to sitting on your couch and commentating and like making fun of shit that you see on TV, which I do constantly. I do it constantly. I make fun of everybody on TV. My wife hates watching TV with me because I'm just like, oh, I just make fun of everything that I see that she likes. I just think it's funny. I'm being an asshole, I guess, or whatever. But that's what YouTube comments are sometimes. It's like, it's actually, people type it out, but in a lot of ways, it's not really meant for anybody. It's like rhetorical, a lot of it. But some of that shit just pisses me off, man. Just pisses me off so bad. Troy Romero. Oh, gosh, I didn't mean to say your whole name. Sorry, I just doxed a racist here on the channel. Damn it. He said Penn Nation, so I guess he's a Penn State fan. Good luck to your Nittany Lions there, Mr. Troy. We do actually appreciate you watching. All right, let's talk about these, man. And guys, we're not going to sit here and spend an hour on each of these. These are our early thoughts. Tune in Tuesday. We're going to have our full breakdown, preview, and prediction. We'll have all the stats, all the bells and whistles that Kirby said that he doesn't need. We'll have that here on the show. Kirby don't like bells and whistles, but we do here on the First and Long. Just not on our football team. We do on our football channel. LSU at Texas A&M, SEC showdown, and it's a big one, man. This is a really, really big game. A couple of teams that are undefeated in the SEC at this point. LSU is coming into their own. This is the best version of LSU that we've seen, I think, since the national championship, right? I mean, you could maybe say Brian Kelly's first season, but I don't know. I don't know. I think this team might have an edge on that team. Defensively, LSU and Blake Baker have figured out a way to get guys in position to make plays, and that's with injuries going on and everything. I mean, Harold Perkins being out, Weeks steps up, and he's been playing just absolutely out of his mind. The defensive line has played a whole lot better than what I thought they would coming out of the preseason. It was much talked about amongst LSU fans, and there's several LSU pages that I follow and listen to, and LSU fans were absolutely beside themselves. The fact that they couldn't get a defensive line transfer, specifically interior, to come in the offseason and provide some help in that room. I'm really impressed with what the group's been able to do thus far. It's going to be Texas A&M is a running football team at this point. Now, that not to say they can't throw the football. I'm not saying that. We watched Texas A&M versus Missouri, and I think we saw a different side of Texas A&M's offense that we had not seen with Connor Wegman coming back from injury again. Being able to come in and really give that team a lift that Marcel Reed wasn't able to do. I think this is a big matchup. I'm really interested to see how this Texas A&M front seven matches up with LSU. We saw LSU last week be able to run the football, or at least have some semblance of a run game with Durham. And I think that's really, really imperative in this game. I think you've got to be able to strike some type of balance. We saw and LSU and Georgia both this weekend be able to utilize the run game enough to bring defenses in and then be able to hit over the top a little bit and hit some of those explosive pass plays. And LSU has been one of the most explosive teams in the pass game all season. So if you're looking for a box to check and say we're good there, I'd say that's it for LSU. I said I'm interested to see how the front seven it matches up against LSU. But one of the biggest questions, obviously, in this football game with the style of football that LSU plays on offense is, how does this Texas A&M secondary match up against these wide receivers for LSU? And I think it's the most basic question about this game. I think it's the number one question that people are going to ask. What are your thoughts on this football game? Well, I'm going to pull up these schedules. I had them pulled up here, and then I think I exited out. on my phone. So I'm going to pull these schedules up, and we'll kind of talk about the opponents that these teams have played. Um, Texas A&M hasn't played a team that throws the ball very well. They played one this
Yeah.
past weekend in Mississippi State, and it was a bit of a struggle. Um, so I'm interested to see how that secondary is going to respond this week. What are your thoughts on this game?
Well, I'm with you. I mean, that was kind of going to be my point as far as the matchup in this game. Look, I really like what LSU is doing right now. I think they are the new hot shiny toy in the SEC with them stacking up a couple of really impressive wins the past 2 weeks. You cannot deny that this LSU defense looks much better. They're playing like a 2007 LSU defense finally. Now they didn't start the season playing like that. We all watched the USC game early in the season, and we saw what happened to LSU in that game. Defensively, which they did look much better than 2023, but not playing nearly at the level that they are now. Yeah, a lot of yards. It was kind of a shootout. But now I'm looking at this LSU team and this LSU defense and the transformation that it's undergone, and I'm saying, man, this is a team that can, especially if they continue to get better and play more cohesive as a unit, build some confidence on that side of the football. I think that's something that has been lacking for quite some time for LSU. If they can continue to do that, I really feel like this LSU team could win the SEC. And I know I'm really not trying to just speak in hyperbole or just give you some hot take. Like, just sit down and watch them play. Man, the defense has changed this team dramatically. And the offense, I mean, you're missing Jalen Daniels. I think that was more of a factor early in the season. But now, under Garrett Nussmeier, with the experience that he has in the program, in the system, and Kyron Lacey playing really well right now, Aaron Anderson playing really well, Mason Taylor he continues to look like one of the best tight ends in the country. And they got a true freshman running the football finally in Caden Durham. I mean, it's a complete team now. And I do think that they still have to clean some things up in the secondary. We didn't see Arkansas really be able to test them on the back end, but they were doing such a good job in run block or in run protection, I should say, with their rush defense and bringing four that nothing was open on the back end. So Taylon Green not being a third and fourth read quarterback was not finding open receivers in that defense. And that just speaks to the push that they're getting up front on the defensive line. On the edge, they're just flying around the football, looking really, really tough to beat. Now, after I've glazed LSU as much as anybody's going to glaze LSU right now at this point in the season, I think also look at Texas A&M. And I'm sure that some fans around college football are looking at the Mississippi State game and saying, man, how you give up 24 to Mississippi State? Well, I mean, Mississippi State, first of all, credit them and the way that they're playing right now, because the past 3 games that they've had to play are not easy. You had Texas, Georgia, and Texas A&M. My gosh, like what a tough schedule. And go look at their schedule, man. It gets tougher. I mean, well, it doesn't get tougher, but there's no let up. I mean, they've got Missouri later in the year. They got Ole Miss, of course. I mean, it's a murderer's row for Mississippi State. So if you want to talk about how tough your schedule is, you're not going to get any sympathy from those Bulldog fans over there. But I say that to say, Mississippi State scored 24 on Texas A&M. Nobody really expected them to score that much. Nobody expected them to score 34 on Georgia either. Like, at some point, nobody expected them to play Texas close. At some point, you really have to look at the offense and the job that Jeff Lebby is doing and saying, okay, this is a quality offense, right? Their defense is terrible. Their defense is absolutely terrible. But the offense is pretty good. I think that they're pretty good. The defense does have Stone Blanton, which I think is a highly underrated middle linebacker, but I digress. Overall, their defense is pretty tough, or it's pretty bad. So for Texas A&M, it's I say that to say it's really tough to gauge that game the Mississippi, anytime anybody plays Mississippi State, it's going to be tough to gauge that game and get an understanding of what your team is, right? If you're the one facing Mississippi State, I almost want to just kind of excuse that game in a sense, because I think that more data is needed on a young Jeff Levy team to really understand kind of what you're going up against. But I go back to the Missouri game, and granted, that was a flawless game by Texas A&M, and I know you could point at a thing, something here or there where things got a little bit sloppy, but it was about as good a football game as you could have played. I mean, let's be honest. Connor Wegman's 80% passing the football. I mean, just looked absolutely efficient. Best game I've seen him play personally, and
ran the football really well. Yeah.
So I'm wondering if you're 80% of that, right? Because you can't expect to do that week in and week out. You just can't. It was a flawless game, like I said. If you're 80% of that, what's your chances against LSU, right? Assuming that they play at 80% of their potential, which I still don't think LSU has played a full game yet this year. But what's your chances? Well, Vegas says it's 3 points. So your Vegas is telling us it's a pick 'em on a neutral site. Texas A&M gets 3 points at home. I might say it's a little bit more for a Kyle Field night game. So to me, I mean, looking at this game though, you're completely right. Texas A&M has not faced a passing offense like LSU. I'm a little bit concerned with them on the back end of the defense if the front end of the defense is not getting home against this LSU offensive line, which is one of the best pass blocking teams in the country. So to me, I want to see that matchup. I want to see the wide receivers for LSU go up against the defenders for Texas A&M, because I know they're good, but it's a mix of talent, a lot of transfers on the back end of that defense. How are they going to play in their biggest matchup so far this year? That's the big question to me. I think that's a matchup to watch this weekend. And, obviously games are won in the trenches. I think you've got good on good up front. Texas A&M's defense versus LSU's offensive line. That's going to be a battle to watch. I kind of feel like you're going to see each side of that win some matchups here and there. But if LSU's offensive line is winning some matchups, I mean, somebody's probably going to get open down the field, and I trust Nussmeier to find that person at some point. But how often is that going to happen, right? Is it happening every drive? Because if that's the case, you're in for a long day against LSU. They're gonna find that person if you're not getting the pass rush up front, and eventually they're gonna find the end zone. They're gonna be getting 3 points if nothing else, because they like to take deep shots. But ultimately, you gotta have good pass coverage on the back end if you're not getting home, and I think it's gonna be tough to get home, consistently. Like we saw Georgia versus Texas, we saw Georgia get home almost every single drive, almost every single play. I mean, they were really getting at Quinn Ewers in that game, and it caused Quinn Ewers to not have time to find those open receivers, even though there were some open on the back end. I don't see that happening as much in this game, even as good as the Texas pass rush is. I don't see that happening every single play in a sense, or the majority of the plays. If it's a little bit more even, a little bit more split, what's the back end of that defense doing? I think that you completely nailed it, and I think that's the matchup to watch this week.
Absolutely. Look, and I just want to kind of point something out here. Texas A&M, you look at some of their opponents this season, Mississippi State is probably the best passing offense that Texas A&M has played this season. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section, guys. I mean, Notre Dame can't pass. McNeese, Florida, at that point, Florida looks a little better right this second, but at that point in the season, I mean, come on. Bowling Green is actually not a bad passing team. It's a sneaky, decent passing team, but this team doesn't have a ton of experience this season against a team that throws the ball like that. And then if you look at LSU and who they've played this season, I mean, USC, they played South Carolina, who I think has got a pretty decent defense. Ole Miss, who I think has got a pretty decent defense. And they've scored 36 and 29 on those teams. So how does LSU? I think they're more battle tested at this point. I mean, I don't think there's any arguing that. And we've seen them up against some pretty tough defenses and they've been able to be successful. Now, granted, Ole Miss, I would say the secondary is probably the weakness of their defense, but I still think it's somewhat decent. And you can definitely say that South Carolina's got a good defense. So scoring 36 on the road at South Carolina is pretty impressive. But I do think that Texas A&M is the best defense that LSU has faced this season. They will have been, and so I'm really interested to see how LSU's front is able to respond to that. Haven't given up a lot of sacks, Mason. Just like you said, they've been really, really good at protecting the quarterback. Last I saw, they had given up 2 sacks all year. It may be 3 or 4 by now, but I'm pretty sure it's right around that 2 mark, which is tops in the country. So LSU, I think, has got what they need to win this game, but I think this is going to be a really, really good football game. All right, guys, thank y'all so much for watching. Chris Cobb, I had put this one up already, but I'm more worried about South Carolina than LSU. I think my Aggies should beat LSU, but lose to South Carolina. I had to think about that one for a second, Chris, because I had to kind of visualize that, and I do kind of see what you're saying. But at the same time, LSU, I mean, they're getting better every week right now. So it's tough sometimes to shed what you saw at the beginning of the season, get it out of mind, and focus on what they've been doing the last couple of weeks. And what they're doing the last few weeks has been working. And Blake Baker's running that defense now. There's like a head coach for defense, and then there's like a head coach for offense right now. And I really like the balance that's been struck at LSU and the way that they've got everything structured. I think Texas A&M's defense, like I said, is really good. Um, but is the offense, going to be able to have one of those games like they did against Missouri, or is it going to be one, like something else that we've seen so far this season? Anybody can admit that Texas A&M's offense has clearly been very inconsistent, the most inconsistent part of this football team. Going to be a real good one. I can't wait to watch that one. I really don't know at this point. I got to dig deeper on that one. And Mason, we're going to have to kind of run through these last 3 pretty quick. That was the game.
Yeah.
That's the game of the weekend, guys. I mean, let's just be real.
Obviously, I put a little bit more thought into that one. I did not mean to rant for as long as I did, but I didn't feel like every point. It was like I was going down a chain there. Every point had a point to follow up on, and so it took a little bit longer for me to get through that. Sorry if I was long winded, y'all, but
no,
I'm really excited for that game. I really am.
I am too. That's going to be a really, really good one. Look, we got Missouri at Alabama to talk about, which is a 13.5-point spread. Nebraska at Ohio State, 25.5-point spread, and then Illinois at Oregon, 21.5-point spread. Mason, can we go like scramble drill style on these real quick?
Yeah.
I got to go. I got stuff I got to do. I've got to go work in Atlanta tonight, so I must go north.
The lost city of Atlanta,
dude. The piece of shit city of Atlanta. Good Lord, what a piece of shit that place is. All right. Excuse my French, guys. Sorry about that. But if you've been to Atlanta, you know what I'm talking about. There are nice areas, but then you turn the corner and then it's like, whoa, holy shit. Am I in Nicaragua? All right. Mizzou at Alabama. Alabama, 13.5-point favorite. Trying to pick up the pieces, Mason. This is an Alabama team that's reeling. This is an Alabama coaching staff that I don't feel like has any control over their team. We saw more throwing fits on the sideline. We saw more, terrible penalty at the end of the Tennessee game. I mean, you put yourself in a 4th and 22 to try to keep yourself in the game. I mean, Alabama is in self-destruct mode right this second. T-Town is in complete turmoil. Coach DeBoer is soft as butter at this point. He's not a disciplinarian. There's a lot of things that Alabama is dealing with right now beyond football. And Jalen Milroe seems like he's fighting whatever ghosts are in his head right now. This is, I think, the worst we've seen him play, really, since he started playing in Alabama. Really just had a hard time being, just totally indecisive. But Mizzou has been a complete disappointment this season. I would have thought this offense would have been a whole lot better. I suspected it would take the defense a second to get going with the NFL talent that they lost. But we just have to be real. Mizzou's been a little bit disappointing this season. We've heard Missouri fans say that Brady Cook, they think he's hurt, and they don't think he's healthy. And I don't know how true that is. I don't know. I mean, I really just don't. I'm not saying you guys probably know better than I do, you Mizzou fans. But Mizzou fans, tell me in the comment section. I mean, do you go to the backup? Do you stay with the backup? I guess he played some this past week and he didn't look good, I guess. Y'all let me know. I mean, who's better, a hurt Brady Cook or the backup? I'd love to know in the comment section as this game approaches. Alabama, like I said, defensively is just they're kind of a mess right now. And I think this is a chance for Missouri to kick Bama while they're down. I think this is an awesome opportunity for Missouri, and really kind of the last call for Missouri to show the nation that they are a college football playoff team if they are such. I don't think they are right now. It doesn't look like it to me. But then again, I've never even seen a 12-team playoff. So maybe they're a number 11. Maybe this is what number 11 looks like, guys. Maybe this is what number 12 looks like. I don't know. What do you think about this football game? There's a lot of storylines, and I would say at least 60% of them have nothing to do with the football game.
Yeah, well, first of all, Alabama's in wounded animal mode. I mean, absolutely. Two losses right now for the first time since 2008 or something like that at this point in the season.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just a crazy transition now from Nick Saban to Kalen DeBoer. It seems like Kalen DeBoer looks lost on the sideline. I don't feel like he has a good grip on this program, I would say. Overall, it seems like the players are running the team, and he's just kind of facilitating some things. But I think that Alabama is going to put their best foot forward this week against Missouri. I think that those players, even if it's a player-led team, like those are very prideful players. While they do make they do make mistakes that cause issues on the field, and they are heavily penalized. I mean, 15 penalties in that Tennessee game. My gosh, not going to win many games playing like that. But they're a prideful bunch. They're a very talented bunch. They're still one of, if not the most talented roster in college football. I think with their backs against the wall, they come out swinging in this football game against Missouri. And then on the flip side, I mean, Missouri playing Alabama's little brother in Auburn this past week. You saw Brady Cook go out in that game, and it seemed like Auburn had really a good handle on the game. And Brady Cook goes out in the first quarter, goes out hurt, goes to the locker room, comes back, hits the tent for a minute. He's ready to go in the fourth quarter. And you see what I was impressed with Brady Cook was not what he did on the field necessarily, but what he did on the sideline. He goes up to Drew Pine and says, all right, what do I need to see? What's going on here? What information can you give me that I missed to help me go win this game for our team? And he pumped everybody up on the sideline, probably got some good meds in the locker room, let's be honest. But he was pumping everybody up on the sideline, talking to his receivers and saying, hey guys, we need 2 scores. Let's go get it. And they went out there and did it, man. I thought that was really impressive. It showed to me that he is a huge advantage over Drew Pine because of his leadership. And I think that Mizzou fans need to get behind this guy. I've seen, them still kind of saying that he's not the guy and whatnot. But when you have that leadership intangible with that team and the connection with that team, I think that he gives you the best opportunity to win given what's on the bench at this point. So you will see Missouri, and this to me, honestly, while Missouri's not necessarily in wounded animal mode, if you look ahead to their schedule, there's not a quality win left to be had on their schedule. I mean, they've got Alabama this week, and then you really have to look ahead to Arkansas at the end of the year. I mean, Oklahoma doesn't look like a battle. I mean, you got to worry about South Carolina, but that win is not going to get you into the college football playoff. Whereas Alabama, even though they're down this year, that's still a big team, a big brand, and it would certainly boost your resume if you're able to beat Alabama more than any other team on your schedule. So to me, this is a must-win for both teams, really. And I think you're gonna see some offensive fireworks. I would not be surprised if the over hits in this one. If Missouri is able to play consistent football on the offensive side of the football, they've been a little bit up and down so far this year. But I think you see a really competitive football game this week, and not sure who's going to win. We got to do some more digging, but on Tuesday's show, we'll give you our predictions. No, I really don't know where I'm leaning at this point. I can't even give you a lean right now, Mark, but I do think that it'll be a close football game.
Absolutely. I asked. We'll conclude that little segment there. Comments. I was talking to O'Neal. I was asking him what his favorite games are for this weekend, and he was saying the Boise State UNLV.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's going to be a good one, and I told him we'll talk about that some on the scramble drill that we do on Tuesday for sure. That'll be one we probably lead off with on the scramble drill, I would imagine, because that does have implications, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. We definitely need to talk about that. And then the matchups this weekend, it's not a lot of ranked on ranked. Which is a recipe, as we know in college football, for absolute craziness, probably. So it's probably going to just be wild as hell. Anytime you see these large point spreads, it's like there's always 3 or 4 of them that it's just like, damn, it's the fourth quarter and so's up by 3. What the heck? Probably be one of those weekends. All right. Can we do Illinois at Oregon? And then I'm going to have to go, man. And then if you want to do Nebraska, Ohio State, that's fine. Unfortunately, I got to go. I got somebody waiting on me to go up there. All right, let's jump into this one real quick.
All right.
Illinois at Oregon. It's a Big Ten matchup. Oregon is favored by 21.5, over under set at 54.5. Obviously taking place there in Eugene. Illinois is one of the more surprising teams this season. I feel like Illinois every few years has one of these pop teams, and I think this is one of those pop teams. I'll cut right to the chase. Illinois' got to figure out a way to get some kind of run game going in this football game and strike some kind of balance on offense if they're going to want to be able to compete here. Illinois has been really good. Luke Altmaier's been really good at throwing the ball this season, and that's kind of weird to say. As I think most people over the last, 10-year sample size kind of look at Illinois, think, all right, run first, type of thing. They've struggled to hit 100 yards in any game this season, as far as, or a 100-yard rusher in any game this season. It's a by committee approach for running the football, and it hasn't necessarily been a strong suit of this team. Defensively, are they able to hold up against Oregon, who we saw in that Ohio State game when the bright lights cut on? I mean, Oregon can get the ball down the field now. I mean, they are absolutely explosive. I just don't think Illinois stands much of a chance in this football game, Mason. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, looking at Illinois, I love the story of this program and kind of who they are as a team. I think they're very like blue collar sort of mentality. Everybody doubts you, and they keep just, defying the odds, so to speak. This is a huge level up in competition. I know you just beat Michigan and beat them handedly. I mean, it really wasn't much of a football game, but this is not last year's Michigan team. You are taking on an elite team, so to speak, as elite as an elite team can get this year in college football in Oregon. They have a talented roster from top to bottom. They're deep. They play the run well. They play the pass well on both sides of the football, and they're playing their best football right now. You're not catching them in a downslide or anything like that. I really like Oregon in the spot. Obviously, Vegas does. They're 21.5 point favorites, but this is ranked on rank. This is a ranked on rank matchup. Anything can happen this year. Has proven that to us time and time again. Would not be surprised if Illinois sticks around in this one. especially if they can get the run game going. But I really like what the connection that the wide receivers have with Luke Altmaier as well, and a defense that plays really good on the back half of the defense. They can create some turnovers. They play two forced turnovers. It seems like they're really good at finding the football, getting the head around. The DBs are, and then they've got some players who come up and headhunt and look to punch balls out and things like that. Some real playmakers that have a nose for the football. So those are the types of plays that you need when you're a 3-touchdown underdog. And I think that Illinois kind of has those dudes on defense to force those turnovers, give their offense a chance to come back and score. And we've seen we've seen Oregon be susceptible in the middle of the back end of the defense at the safety positions. Can you continue to target that area of the field? If you're doing that, you're probably taking some deep shots. You got to you got to be at least 50-50 on those shots and not turn the ball over if you're going to go that far down the field and really stretch the defense out that much. But it's a long shot. But at this point, everybody's doubted you to this point in the season. What's one more game? You might as well just give it your all, at this point, if you're Illinois and take some shots. There's nothing to lose. And when you've got a team that has nothing to lose, that's a pretty scary team to face, and match up with, no matter what the talent discrepancy is. And it's massive in this game. But I like Oregon. I'm leaning Oregon at this point, obviously. But Illinois definitely has some paths to victory. And we'll cover that more in our Tuesday show for sure.
I think one of the big matchups will certainly be with everything that you just said, and I agree with you 100%. I think that has got to kind of be the blueprint in Illinois' head at this point. Can they protect Altmaier in this game? I Oregon, knowing that they're not able to run the ball successfully, I'm interested to see how Oregon plays this one, because I don't know how great Illinois is at protecting the quarterback. I haven't looked up their sack numbers, and that's something that we'll kind of dive more into, like Mason just said on Tuesday. Are they able to keep the pass rush off and let those longer plays develop? That'll be, I think, a big question in this one, because I just don't see Illinois being able to line up and run on this Oregon defense at this point. All right, guys, I'll answer these last couple of comments, and then Mason will let you have it. If Illinois can rush that quarterback, Oregon will have troubles. Said double O. Yeah, that's something I got to look at too. I'm scared with this Illinois. I mean, they just gave up 49 to Purdue. They gave up 24 to Nebraska, and I'm just be honest with you, Nebraska is just not very good offensively. We know that now. We didn't necessarily know how bad they were at that point. I don't know, man.
I don't know if Illinois can do a better job of it than Ohio State did. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Maybe, I mean, might be able to keep it within the spread. I mean, if you're talking about within the spread, Double O'Neil, I mean, look, that's very possible. That's very possible. And I'll have to look more into that as far as the spread goes on this football game. Obviously, I think we all like Oregon to win, and Double O says I'm picking Oregon. We all feel that way. I mean, it's 21.5 point spread, but I guess the most interesting thing is, can Illinois keep it interesting, and keep it close. All right, you gonna do Nebraska at Ohio State, Mason?
No, I think I'm just gonna. We'll just wait. I mean, Nebraska fans are still in hiding. They're still licking their wounds from last night, and Ohio State fans have their heads so far stuck up Fox's ass. It ain't even funny. They ain't gonna pay attention to this. You guys know who's gonna win the football game in the chat, right? I am interested to find some keys to victory for Nebraska. I do like the team. I joke, but I need a little bit more than a couple minutes, so we'll wait until Tuesday to do all that.
Okay. Yeah, Nebraska, look, I mean, the biggest thing on their offense right now, their offensive line, I don't think is very good. And they had the turnover issues this past week, which, as many turnovers as they had, you won't win any football games like that. I mean, it very, very rarely. So we'll talk more about that one on Tuesday. That game looked like it had a lot more glitz to it than what it does now, after Indiana absolutely just pushed Nebraska around. I mean, it was ugly. Absolutely ugly. Nobody on this channel was talking more shit than the Nebraska fans, too. I mean, they were just, man, embarrassing. I mean, it really is embarrassing. You can go look in the comment section of some of those videos and look at some of those embarrassing comments. The
Apparently,
Texas
we don't
fans,
watch football, and we don't watch the teams we talk
Yeah.
about. Like, yeah,
Mhm.
we're just up here rambling. All right.
Yeah. Texas fans, they all deleted their comments. Most of them, they went back and deleted theirs because they're such pussies. Excuse
Yeah.
my French,
I'm
but
sure Chris Cobb would love to hear that.
I like Chris Cobb. I like the cut of that guy's jib. I don't even know him that well yet, but I like the things that he says in my comment section. Look at Boise State game versus Ducks. I'm just saying, don't underestimate nobody. I'm still picking Oregon. Yeah, no, I'm with you, Double O'Neil. He's talking about that Oregon Illinois game. I'm with you. I mean, we saw Oregon, kind of struggle at the beginning of the season. Some of those cracks in the foundation still exist. There is not a perfect team this season. There's no 2019 LSU. There's no 2021 Georgia. There's no 20 whatever you want to say Alabama. I don't see any of those teams yet. Now, we're halfway through the season, but this is as much parity in college football as I've seen in a while. All right, guys, we got to close it out. I got to go to work. Look, I love you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I do really look forward to getting on here and chit-chatting with you guys. And our little channel just grows a little bit at a time. And it's all thanks to you guys and you guys watching and liking the videos. And, we seemed like a new person or a couple new people every week with these live shows. A lot more people go back and watch the recording than watch them live, which is not near as much fun to me. We can't interact as much as freely that way. So I really do like you guys tuning in to the live show. I certainly do enjoy it. I hope y'all will hit that thumbs up button for us real quick, so we can get the good word out, and we'll get some more crazies in here, and we'll talk even more football. Thank y'all again so much. Week 8 was a lot of fun. We've turned the page. Here we go, week 9. You've got our top 25. We've laid out some of the big matchups. We'll be back Tuesday to give full previews and predictions, and then we'll go blitz. We'll go scramble drill all around the country, talk about the other big games in every conference, every Power 4 conference. See y'all then, 7:30 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday. Thank you so much.
Thanks, y'all.